Support for WCBU's On Deck comes from State Farm agent Aaron Kilgore. Aaron and his team offer individualized insurance coverage plans to community members at their Sterling Plaza location. Information on home, life, and auto insurance at aaronismyagent.com. This is WCBU.
A bill under consideration in the Illinois House would enhance protections for library employees. That's just one of the things you'll want to hear about to start your day for Thursday, April 11th. I'm Colin Shope, and this is WCBU's On Deck. First on deck today, the Peoria Zoo is up for re-accreditation this year. The process provides a way for the Association of Zoos and Aquariums to keep an eye on the quality and care at zoos around the country. WCBU's Joe Deacon has more.
Peoria Zoo Director Yvonne Strode says 3 inspectors will spend a day or two in late May or early June taking a close look at everything from the zoo's food to its animals.
How are we taking care of the animals? Do they have good welfare, good well-being here? Not just do they have the right food, do they have access to water? That's kind of preliminary, but do we give them enrichment to stimulate their mind?
Specific to the Peoria Zoo, Strode says the AZA is looking for updates to the Tropics building originally built in 1955. Strode says there have been modifications, but they would like to contract an architect, move primate exhibits outside, and rethink the exhibit.
We are hoping we will have an architect under contract with a clear vision of what that building will go for. They certainly understand we've got to raise the money for it. An exhibit that size, you're talking millions of dollars.
Strode says accreditation also makes it easier for the zoo to trade animals at no cost and opens up opportunities for conservation and research projects. For WCBU's On Deck, I'm Joe Deacon.
Here are some other stories we're following in the WCBU newsroom. Woodford County may declare itself a non-sanctuary county for migrants in the country illegally next week. A resolution drafted by the state's attorney says the county won't accept or provide taxpayer-funded services other than emergency services for migrants or asylum seekers in the country illegally. And a majority of Peoria Township residents on Tuesday voted against adding a ballot question asking whether the U.S. should fund Israel in the war overseas. Plus, Dunlap resident Lori Kaplan is back home after competing in a 500-kilometer horseback race across South America in February. Also, Illinois is doling out millions of dollars in grants to help full-service grocery stores open in food deserts. The money comes from the $20 million Illinois Grocery Initiative, which Governor J.B. Pritzker hopes to expand in next year's budget. Find more of these stories and all the details at WCBU.org. A bill strengthening protections for employees of Illinois libraries is headed to the House floor. House Bill 4567 would amend the criminal code outlining the consequences of threatening public officials like school employees and elected officials. If the bill is passed, the law would now also cover library employees and threats made through electronic means like social media.
A threat is a threat regardless of who it's made against, and maybe all threats should be escalated to this level. I'm sure retail workers and other people face similar issues from time to time in their industries. We are thankful, though, that this bill exists.
That's Illinois Library Association President Ryan Johnson. He says the bill comes at a time where threats against public libraries are escalating in frequency and intensity.
I think it's no secret that since COVID, we've seen an increase in vitriol in some of our public dialogue that we've had. Of course, it started with schools, with mask mandates and things like that. And, school board meetings get out of hand and people protesting in front of schools. That has slowly migrated to other public spaces, including libraries.
Last September, a string of bomb and shooting threats temporarily closed suburban Chicago Library. Gina Burr is the director at the Fond du Lac District Library in East Peoria. As a member of the ILA, she signed a witness slip for the bill. Besides the obvious impact of threats on library employees, Burr points out that there's an impact on the broader community.
You're dealing with closed library spaces, inability to access services, staff that kind of need to regroup after a really intense experience. And it's an intense experience for the community as well because they rely on the library of being a safe space.
If the bill passes, Burr sees an opportunity to make it clear to library employees that their service is valued.
I think they would feel recognized and validated that the work they do here is important and vital, that which it is, of course, that it does get those kind of additional recognized protections.
However, not everyone is on board with the legislation. The American Civil Liberties Union of Illinois is opposed to penalty enhancements in general, including those for repeat offenders outlined in this bill. Benjamin Riddell is Director of Criminal Justice Policy for the Illinois ACLU. He acknowledges that, on one hand, the bill is in response to a trend of hateful threats against librarians. But on the other hand,
the people who are making these threats are unlikely to be deterred under an enhanced penalty, just like they're not deterred under the current criminal prohibition for making these kinds of threats. These kinds of penalty enhancements, allow elected officials to say they're doing something about a problem, but there's no enhanced safety.
Riddell suggests that if law enforcement officials aren't currently taking threats against library workers seriously enough under the current law, legislators should address that issue before enhancing penalties for offenders.
It's kind of a never-ending cycle of pitting groups of people against one another and saying, well, this group of people doesn't have the same protection as this other group of people that has an enhanced penalty for being the victim of a threat or an assault under a criminal statute. And there's really no end to it.
Johnson says he can see the merit of the ACLU's argument, but he still has concerns.
I'm not sure that solving those root causes is something that can be done legislatively, but increasing penalties is. So it's not a magic bullet. It's not a panacea. But it's a gesture, it's a step in the right direction, albeit a small one. And hopefully, because of these types of dialogues that we're having around these issues, maybe we can get to something more substantive down the road.
The bill is now set to return to the House floor for a second reading and short debate. Now, before we let you go, today is a regular meeting of the Peoria County Board. Those meetings start at 6 p.m. in County Boardroom 403 of the Peoria County Courthouse. And that's all for today. You can subscribe to WCBU's On Deck podcast on the NPR app, Apple, or Spotify.